The little girl's fingers were blue from the cold when she held up the wilted roses. "Please, mister." "Just $2. Her voice cracked, small and desperate in the November rain. Dante Moretti didn't buy flowers. He gave orders that made grown men weep. He controlled half of New York's underground with a word. But something in those gray eyes, too old for a child's face, made him stop. His driver tensed. His bodyguards shifted. The street went silent. And then she said the 7 words that would shatter the most dangerous man in the city. "My mama says angels don't need money." This is a story that will grip you from beginning to end. If you want to know how a chance encounter on a rainy street changed everything, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view matters, and this journey is one you won't forget. The rain fell like needles on Fifth Avenue, cold and merciless. Lily Chen had been standing on that corner for 3 hours, her small frame shivering under a cardboard box she'd shaped into a makeshift shelter. The roses in her arms were dying, petals brown at the edges, stems bent from too many hours in her frozen grip. She was 8 years old, and she knew what hunger felt like. Flowers. Fresh flowers. Her voice barely carried over the sound of traffic. Businessmen in $1,000 suits walked past without seeing her. Women with designer bags pulled their children closer, as if poverty were contagious. Lily didn't blame them. She'd learned that invisible was safer than seen. The black SUV pulled up so suddenly that water sprayed across the sidewalk. Lily stepped back, her heart hammering. She recognized wealth when she saw it, the kind that didn't just walk past, it crushed what stood in its way. The vehicle was armor-plated, windows tinted so dark they looked like oil. Behind it, 2 more SUVs formed a wall of metal and menace. The back door opened. He emerged like smoke solidifying into flesh, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. Dante Moretti. She didn't know his name yet, but she'd seen him before, always surrounded by men who moved like weapons. His hair was dark, pushed back from a face that looked carved from marble, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. A tattoo crept up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. His eyes were the color of a winter storm. Every instinct Lily had learned on the streets screamed at her to run. But hunger was louder than fear. "Flowers, sir?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Just $2. They're really pretty." They weren't pretty. They were dying, just like her hope. Dante Moretti didn't respond immediately. He stood there, rain soaking into his expensive suit, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. His bodyguards fanned out, scanning the street with practiced paranoia. One of them, a mountain of muscle with a scar bisecting his eyebrow, moved toward her. "Boss, we're late for—" Dante raised one hand. The man fell silent instantly. "How long have you been out here?" His voice was deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence was always an option. Lily swallowed hard. Since morning. It's 4 in the afternoon. You're soaked through." It wasn't concern in his voice, it was observation, cold and clinical. "Where are your parents?" The question hit like a fist to her stomach. Lily's fingers tightened on the roses, thorns biting into her palms. "My mama's sick. Real sick. The hospital says, they say she needs surgery, but we don't have insurance and the bills are—" Her voice broke. She was saying too much. "Desperation made you stupid." Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. He reached into his jacket, and every muscle in Lily's body tensed. She'd heard stories about men like him, men who made people disappear. He pulled out a wallet. Leather, probably Italian, probably worth more than her entire life. "How much for all of them?" Lily blinked, rain streaming down her face. "All?" "Every flower you have." Her mind raced. She had maybe 20 roses left, all in various states of decay. At $2 each. $40. Dante pulled out a bill. In the gray light, Lily saw the number. 100. Her breath caught. Keep the change. He took the flowers from her arms, his fingers brushing hers for a fraction of a second. His hands were warm, surprisingly gentle. Scarred, too. She saw the white lines across his knuckles, the kind you got from fighting without gloves. Lily stared at the bill in her hand like it might evaporate. $100. It was food. It was heat. It was medicine. It was hope crystallized into paper. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. God bless you, sir. You're like an angel." The words came out without thinking, gratitude overflowing from a heart that had forgotten what kindness felt like. Dante Moretti went completely still. The bodyguards exchanged glances. The rain seemed to fall harder. And then Dante looked at her, really looked at her, and Lily saw something crack behind those cold eyes. Pain. Raw and ancient. "What did you say?" His voice was barely audible over the rain. Lily's heart started hammering again. Had she offended him? I said you're like an angel. My mama always says that when someone helps us, they're angels in disguise, Anne. Your mother. He cut her off, his jaw tight. She's in the hospital now? Lily nodded, suddenly afraid again. She'd said too much. She always said too much. Dante turned to the scarred bodyguard. Marco, find out which hospital. Get me everything. The mother's name, diagnosis, bills, doctors. Everything. I want it in an hour. Marco didn't question. He pulled out his phone and stepped away. Dante looked back at Lily, and for a moment, just a fraction of a breath, she saw something almost human beneath the armor. What's your name? Lily. Lily Chen. Lily. He repeated it like he was memorizing it. How old are you? 8. Almost 9. Something in his expression shifted. His hand moved to his neck, fingers brushing the edge of his tattoo. 8, he murmured, more to himself than to her. The same age she would have been. Lily didn't understand. She didn't dare ask. Dante crouched down. This dangerous man in his expensive suit, kneeling in a puddle on Fifth Avenue, until he was at eye level with her. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion beneath the danger. Listen to me, Lily Chen. You don't sell flowers on street corners anymore. Understand? Fear spiked through her chest. But I have to. My mama needs. Your mama's bills are paid. All of them. His voice was absolute, leaving no room for argument. Surgery, recovery, everything. It's handled. Lily's world tilted. I don't understand. You don't need to. He stood, towering over her again. Someone will be here tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. They'll take you to see your mother. He paused, rain streaming down his face like tears he'd never shed. And Lily? Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not the nurses, not the social workers. No one. Can you do that? She nodded, too shocked to speak. Dante Moretti turned and walked back to his SUV, the wilted roses still in his hand. Before he got in, he looked back one last time. Angels don't need money, he said quietly, almost to himself. But maybe devils do. The door closed. The convoy pulled away. And Lily stood there in the rain, $100 clutched in her frozen hand, wondering what had just happened, and why the most dangerous man in New York had tears in his eyes when she called him an angel. Dante Moretti didn't sleep. He'd stopped trying years ago, when the nightmares became indistinguishable from memory. At 3 a.m., he stood in his penthouse office, 40 stories above Manhattan, surrounded by screens that monitored his empire. Drug shipments, protection rackets, political bribes. The ugly machinery of power, running smooth and merciless. The wilted roses sat in a crystal vase on his desk. He'd thrown away the vase that usually occupied that space, Murano glass, worth $20,000, and replaced it with gas station flowers bought from a homeless child. His consigliere had stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Boss. Marco entered without knocking, the only person who dared. He carried a manila folder thick with documents. The information you requested. Dante took the folder but didn't open it immediately. Tell me. Marco's scarred face remained neutral. Lily Chen. Age 31. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. She's been at Mount Sinai for 2 weeks. The prognosis. He hesitated. Not good, boss. Even with surgery, the doctors are saying maybe 6 months. Maybe less. Something cold and familiar settled in Dante's chest. The girl. Lily Chen. 8 years old, exactly. Fathers listed as unknown. The mother's been raising her alone, working 3 jobs until the diagnosis. They lost their apartment 4 months ago. Been living in a shelter in the Bronx. Department of Child Services has been sniffing around, talking about foster care if the mother doesn't recover. Dante's fingers tightened on the folder. Foster care. Yes, sir. He opened the file. The first page was a photo, Lily Chen's hospital ID. Even ravaged by illness, Dante could see where Lily got her features. The same delicate bone structure. The same determined set to the jaw. The second page was Lily's school record. Brilliant grades despite everything. Perfect attendance until 2 months ago, when her world fell apart. The third page was a child services report. Clinical. Detached. Discussing a little girl like she was a problem to be solved rather than a life to be saved. Dante closed the folder. Make it go away. Marco nodded. He knew what that meant. All of it. The medical bills. The debts. The child services investigation. I want the mother transferred to the best oncology center in the country. I want the best doctors, the best treatment, no expense spared. And I want the girl somewhere safe, not a shelter, not foster care. Somewhere she can sleep without fear. Boss. Marco rarely questioned orders, but this made him pause. May I speak freely? Dante's expression hardened, but he nodded. You don't know these people. The girl approached you on the street. This isn't your responsibility. I'm aware. There are hundreds of kids like her in this city. Thousands. You can't save them all. I'm not trying to save them all. Dante's voice was ice over magma, cold on the surface, burning underneath. Just this one. Marco studied his boss's face, seeing something he'd never seen before in 15 years of service. Not softness. Dante Moretti was incapable of softness. But something had cracked. Some old wound had opened. The tattoo on your neck, Marco said carefully. The one with the date. Don't. The word was a blade. Don't go there. But they both knew where there was. November 15th. 8 years ago. The date inked permanently into Dante's skin, over his heart and up his neck where he could never forget. The day his sister died. The day 8-year-old Isabella Moretti was killed in crossfire from a rival family. The day Dante stopped believing in God, angels, or anything except revenge. She would have been 16 now, Dante said quietly, his back to Marco. Instead, she's in a grave in Queens, and I'm standing here with blood on my hands wondering if any of it ever mattered. Boss. That little girl on the street called me an angel. Dante laughed, a sound without humor. Do you know what Isabella used to call me? Her guardian angel. She'd say it every night when I checked on her before bed. Thank you, guardian angel. His voice fractured. I couldn't save her. I was too slow, too stupid, too focused on power instead of protection. And she died believing I was something I never was. The room fell silent except for the hum of the city below. So no, Dante continued, turning back to face Mako. I can't save them all. But I can save this one. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to prove that Isabella wasn't completely wrong about me. Mako nodded slowly. He'd follow this man into hell. They all would. I'll handle it personally. And Mako? Total discretion. If Lily or her mother finds out who paid for this, if anyone connects it back to me, I'll be very disappointed. Understood. The next morning, Lily stood outside Mount Sinai Hospital, clutching the hand of a woman in an elegant suit who'd appeared at the shelter exactly at 8 a.m. The woman had introduced herself as Ms. Rodriguez from a private charitable foundation. She'd brought breakfast, real breakfast, with eggs and bacon and orange juice, and new clothes for Lily. Clean, warm clothes that fit. Are you ready? Ms. Rodriguez asked gently. Lily nodded, even though her heart was trying to climb out of her chest. She hadn't seen her mother in 3 days. The shelter wouldn't pay for transportation, and the subway fare might as well have been $1 million. They rode the elevator to the 7th floor. Lily's reflection stared back at her from the polished metal doors, a stranger in clean clothes, hair brushed, face washed. She looked almost normal, almost like a regular kid. Room 714. Ms. Rodriguez knocked softly before opening the door. Mei Chen was sitting up in bed, and that alone was a miracle. 3 days ago, she'd been barely conscious. Now her eyes were clear, focused, and flooded with tears the moment she saw her daughter. Lily. Her voice was weak but alive. Oh, baby, come here. Lily ran. She crashed into her mother's arms and sobbed great, heaving sobs that she'd been holding back for months. May held her daughter like she'd never let go, her own tears flowing freely. I'm sorry, May whispered. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you had to be out there alone. You're okay, Lily said into her mother's shoulder. You look better. You look so much better. The doctors came this morning, May said, wonder in her voice. They said someone paid. Everything. All the bills. And they're transferring me to a special cancer center. They said I have a chance, Lily. A real chance. Lily pulled back, looking into her mother's face. Who paid? I don't know. They won't tell me. Some foundation. Some charity. May cupped her daughter's face with trembling hands. It's a miracle. An absolute miracle. Lily thought of cold rain and gray eyes and a man who moved like violence personified. She thought of wilted roses and words that had somehow cracked through armor. She thought of the warning, don't tell anyone. Yeah, she whispered. A miracle. From the hallway, unseen, Dante Moretti stood in the shadow of a doorway. He'd told himself he wouldn't come. He'd told himself that sending Marco was enough, that knowing the job was done was sufficient. But he'd driven here anyway, drawn by something he couldn't name and didn't want to examine. He watched the mother and daughter hold each other. He watched Lily smile, really smile, for probably the first time in months. And he felt something shift in his chest, some calcified piece of his heart cracking just enough to let in light. Guardian angel, he murmured to himself. Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the hospital floor, leaving behind 2 lives he'd saved and taking with him a burden that weighed just a fraction less than before. 3 months passed like pages in a book Lily was afraid to read too quickly, terrified the story would end. Her mother was getting better. Not cured, the doctors were careful to say, but better. The cancer was responding to treatment. The pain was manageable. Hope, that dangerous and precious thing, had started to bloom in places where only despair had lived. Lily and her mother had been moved to a small apartment in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, but it was clean, safe, and miraculously rent-free, another gift from the mysterious foundation. Ms. Rodriguez checked in weekly, bringing groceries, handling paperwork, making sure Lily got back to school. Lily's classmates asked where she'd been. She told them her mother had been sick but was getting better. She didn't mention the shelter, the hunger, the flowers sold in the rain. Some stories were too heavy to share. But she thought about him constantly. The man with storm-gray eyes and hands scarred from violence. The man who'd looked at her like she was a ghost come to life. She'd tried searching online, "Man in expensive suit New York," but that described half the city. She'd looked for the SUVs, hoping to see that distinctive convoy, but Manhattan swallowed secrets whole. She didn't know his name. She didn't know how to thank him. And the not knowing burned worse than the cold had. Until the day she saw him again. It was late March, the first warm day after a brutal winter. Lily was walking home from school, her backpack full of library books and her head full of math problems. She turned the corner onto her street and froze. The black SUV was parked in front of her apartment building. Her heart stopped, then started again at triple speed. She approached slowly, cautiously, like approaching a sleeping lion. The vehicle sat silent and imposing, windows dark. Was he inside? Should she knock? Should she run? The back door opened before she could decide. Lily Chen. Dante Moretti emerged, and in the spring sunlight he looked different, less like a nightmare, more like a man. Still dangerous. Still beautiful in that brutal, carved-from-stone way. But somehow more human. He wore jeans today, and a black Henley that showed the full extent of his neck tattoo, a date she could see now. November 15th, 2017, surrounded by wings and thorns. Mr. She realized she didn't know what to call him. Sir. Dante. He said it like admitting a weakness. My name is Dante Moretti. Lily tested the name silently. It fit him, dangerous and elegant in equal measure. I wanted to check on you, he continued, his voice still carrying that controlled edge. Make sure the arrangements were adequate. It was you. The words tumbled out. The foundation. The doctors. The apartment. All of it. It was you. Dante didn't confirm or deny, but his silence was answer enough. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. Why? You don't even know us. We're nobody. You reminded me of someone. He cut her off gently. Someone I couldn't save. The tattoo. The date. Lily's mind made connections with the fierce intelligence that had kept her alive on the streets. Someone who died? My sister. The words came out rough, like they'd been pulled from somewhere deep and protected. Isabella. She was 8 years old when she was killed. 8 years and 4 months. He touched the tattoo on his neck. The same age you were when we met. Understanding crashed over Lily like a wave. This wasn't charity. This was penance. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry about your sister. Dante's jaw tightened. Don't apologize for things that aren't your fault. He looked away, toward the apartment building. Your mother. The treatment is working. Yes. The doctors say, they say she might go into remission. It's not guaranteed, but there's hope now. Real hope. Lily's voice cracked. Because of you. Not because of me. Because of resilient women who refuse to give up. His eyes found hers again. But I'm glad I could help. They stood there on the Brooklyn sidewalk, an impossible distance between their worlds, and yet somehow sharing the same space. Lily wanted to say so much. Thank you seemed too small, too inadequate for what he'd given her. A life. A future. A mother. The flowers, she said suddenly. The roses I sold you. You kept them? Dante's expression shifted, something almost embarrassed flickering across his features. They're in my office. They're dead by now. Probably. He paused. But they remind me that sometimes the most valuable things come from the most unexpected places. Lily felt her throat tighten. This man, this dangerous, broken, beautiful man, had saved her life because she'd reminded him of the one life he couldn't save. It was tragic and perfect in equal measure. Can I? She hesitated, suddenly shy. Can I ask you something? Yes. Your sister. When she called you her guardian angel, did you believe her? The question hit him like a physical blow. Lily watched something crack in those storm-gray eyes, pain so raw it was almost obscene to witness. No, he said finally, his voice barely audible. I never believed her. I knew what I was, what I am. A man who built an empire on violence and fear. Angels don't do the things I've done. But you saved us. One good deed doesn't erase a lifetime of sins, Lily. She stepped closer, this small girl with wisdom beyond her years, scarred by suffering and poverty but somehow not broken by it. My mama says redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing differently in the future. One choice at a time. Dante stared at her, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, she saw the boy he must have been before the world made him into something harder. Your mother is a wise woman. She is. Lily smiled. And she'd like to meet you. To thank you. No. The word came fast and sharp. That's not necessary. I don't need thanks. Maybe not. But maybe you need to see that your choice mattered. That you saved two people who are going to live and fight and make the world better because you gave them a chance. She held his gaze, fearless in a way only children can be. Maybe you need to remember that you're not just the bad things you've done. You're also this. Dante Moretti, who'd ordered executions without blinking, who'd built an empire on broken bones and fear, felt something inside him shatter. Not break. Shatter into pieces that could be rearranged into something new. Something that wasn't just darkness. Okay, he said quietly. Just for a minute. Mei Chen was sitting by the window when they entered, her body still thin but her eyes bright and alert. She'd been expecting Lily home from school. She hadn't been expecting her daughter to arrive with a man who looked like danger personified. But when Dante removed his sunglasses and May saw his eyes, she understood immediately. She'd grown up in poverty. She recognized the weight of tragedy when she saw it. Mrs. Chen. Dante's voice was respectful, almost formal. I apologize for the intrusion. You're the one, May said simply. The foundation. The doctors. You're the one who saved our lives. I provided resources. You and your daughter did the surviving. May stood slowly, her legs still weak but determined. She crossed the small living room and did something that made Dante freeze. She hugged him. Not long, not dramatically, just a brief embrace that said more than words ever could. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for giving me more time with my daughter. Thank you for making miracles real. Dante stood rigid, uncomfortable with the intimacy, with the gratitude, with the assumption that he was something worth thanking. But he didn't pull away. When May released him, she was smiling through tears. Lily told me what she said to you. About angels. Your daughter has a vivid imagination. No. May's voice was firm. My daughter has perfect vision. She sees what's real, even when others are blind. She touched his arm gently. Whatever you think you are, whatever darkness you carry, you gave life when you didn't have to. You chose compassion over indifference. That's divine, Mr. Moretti. That's exactly what angels do. Dante's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to explain that they didn't understand who he really was, what he'd really done. But looking at Lily's hopeful face and May's grateful smile, he couldn't find the words. Maybe it didn't matter what he'd been. Maybe what mattered was what he chose to be in this moment. "Call me if you need anything," he said finally, pulling out a card with a single phone number. No name, no title. Anything at all. Medical, financial, protection. Whatever you need. "We couldn't," May started. "You can. And you will. Because that's what—" He paused, the word catching in his throat like glass. "That's what family does." The word hung in the air, unexpected, fragile, precious. Lily walked him to the door. Before he left, she caught his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his scarred knuckles. "Isabella would be proud of you," she said quietly. "I don't know her, but I know she'd be proud." Dante looked down at this impossible child who'd crashed into his life and cracked open something he'd thought was permanently sealed. "Thank you, Lily. Will we see you again?" He should say no. He should walk away and let them live their lives without the shadow of his world darkening their door. But instead he heard himself say, "Yes. If you want to. I want to. Then yes." He left the apartment, descended the stairs, and climbed back into his SUV. Marco was waiting, watching him with that knowing expression. "Boss. Drive." As they pulled away from the curb, Dante looked back once. Lily stood in the window, waving. Just a small girl in a safe apartment with a future that hadn't existed 3 months ago. A small girl who'd called him an angel and somehow made him want to believe it might be true. "Marco," he said quietly, "the date on my neck." "Sir, I want another one. Same artist. Same placement. Just below the first." "What date?" Dante smiled, not his usual sharp, dangerous smile, but something softer. Something that looked almost like hope. "Today," he said. "Today's date. The day I started believing in second chances." The attempt on Dante's life came exactly 3 weeks later, violent and unexpected as a lightning strike. He was leaving a restaurant in Little Italy, neutral territory, or so everyone thought, when the gunfire erupted. 3 shooters, automatic weapons, professional execution. Marco shoved Dante behind an SUV while his security team returned fire. The street became a war zone in seconds, civilians screaming, glass shattering, bullets punching through metal like paper. Dante survived. He always survived. 3 dead bodies leaked onto the pavement, and Dante walked away with nothing worse than a grazed shoulder and cold fury in his eyes. The Salvatore family. His oldest enemies. They'd been waiting for him to show weakness, and apparently 3 months of unusual behavior had looked like vulnerability. Visits to Brooklyn. Resources diverted to civilian charities. Distraction. They'd mistaken compassion for weakness. Fatal error. That night, Dante sat in his penthouse, shoulder bandaged, while his underbosses planned retaliation. The response would be swift and brutal. That was the language his world spoke. But for the first time, Dante wasn't thinking about revenge. He was thinking about a small apartment in Brooklyn. About a woman fighting cancer and a little girl who believed in angels. About how his presence in their lives had just painted a target on their backs. "Boss." Marco appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "We have a problem." Dante's blood went cold. "Lily. The Salvatores know about her. About the mother, too. They've been watching, gathering intelligence. They think—" Marco hesitated. "They think she's your daughter. That the mother is your mistress." Dante was on his feet instantly, pain forgotten. "Status. They're safe for now. I put 2 teams on them the moment the shooting started. But boss, the Salvatores will use them as leverage. I know what they'll do. Dante's voice was ice and iron. How long do we have? Hours. Maybe a day if we're lucky. Dante's mind raced through scenarios, strategies, options. Every path led to the same conclusion. As long as the Salvatores thought Lily and May were vulnerable, they'd be targets. As long as they lived in that apartment, unprotected, they were in danger. There was only one solution, and it would require telling them the truth. Lily woke to the sound of urgent knocking. She stumbled out of bed, confused and half asleep, and found her mother already at the door. Ms. Rodriguez stood in the hallway, her usual calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled tension. "Pack a bag," she said without preamble. "Both of you. 5 minutes. Only essentials." May's hand went to her throat. "What's happening?" "Mr. Moretti will explain. But we need to leave now." Lily's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. They packed in terrified silence, clothes thrown into bags, medications grabbed, Lily's school books abandoned. 4 minutes later, they were in the hallway. 2 large men Lily had never seen before flanked them, hard-faced and alert, hands inside their jackets where weapons undoubtedly waited. The SUV was running at the curb. They were pushed inside with urgent but careful hands. The convoy pulled out immediately, driving fast through empty Brooklyn streets. "Where are we going?" May demanded, her voice sharp with fear. "Safe house," one of the bodyguards said. "Mr. Moretti's orders." "Why? What happened?" The man's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. The safe house was a brownstone in Queens, beautiful and nondescript, with steel-reinforced doors and security cameras covering every angle. They were ushered inside and told to wait. Armed men took up positions at every entrance. Lily held her mother's hand and tried not to cry. 30 minutes later, Dante arrived. He looked different, dangerous in a way he'd never looked before, like all the violence he usually kept leashed had been set free. His shoulder was bandaged beneath his jacket. There was blood on his collar. "You're hurt," May said immediately. "I'm fine." He dismissed it. "But we need to talk. Both of you. And I need you to understand something. I'm going to tell you things that will frighten you. But I need you to trust that I will keep you safe." Lily's heart hammered. "What's happening?" Dante crouched down to her level, his eyes meeting hers with painful honesty. "Do you remember when you asked me what I do? And I told you I was a businessman?" She nodded. "I lied. Or rather, I told you a version of the truth that wouldn't scare you." He took a breath. "I'm the head of a very powerful organization. Some people call it the mob. The MAFIA. I control certain activities in this city. Activities that aren't legal. And I have enemies who want me dead." May gasped. Lily felt the room tilt. "Tonight, those enemies tried to kill me," Dante continued, his voice steady despite the fear in Lily's eyes. "They failed. But in preparing for their attack, they learned about you. About both of you. And they think you're important to me." "Are we?" Lily whispered. Dante's mask cracked completely. "Yes," he said simply. "You are. Which means you're in danger. Because people who want to hurt me will use anyone I care about as a weapon." May pulled Lily closer. "We'll leave. We'll go somewhere far away. No." Dante stood. "Running won't help. They have resources, Reach. They'll find you." He turned to face them both. "There's only one solution that guarantees your safety. You come under my protection. Officially. Publicly. You become part of my family in a way that makes it impossible for anyone to touch you without declaring war on me and everyone allied with me." "How?" May asked. You move into my building. The penthouse has multiple floors. You'll have complete privacy, your own space. But you'll be surrounded by security. Protected. And the world will see you as mine to protect. Off limits. Untouchable. Lily processed this. You're asking us to live with you? I'm asking you to let me keep you alive. The silence stretched, heavy with implications. This wasn't just about physical safety. It was about entering a world of violence and danger, of becoming entangled with a man who admitted to crimes and commanded killers. But it was also about trust. About believing that the man who'd bought flowers in the rain, who'd saved a dying woman and her daughter, who carried his sister's death date on his skin, that this man would protect them even when it cost him. May looked at her daughter. Lily looked at Dante. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Understanding, acceptance, choice. We trust you, May said quietly. We'll come with you. Dante's shoulders relaxed fractionally. Thank you. We leave tonight. Pack whatever you need from the apartment tomorrow, but for now, you stay here until I neutralize the threat. Neutralize? Lily asked, though she suspected she knew what that meant. Make it clear that touching you means death. His voice was absolutely certain. I'm going to end this war before it truly begins. And when it's over, no one will ever threaten you again. He turned to leave, but Lily called out, Dante. He stopped. Please don't die. The words were simple, childish even, but they hit him with the force of a bullet. He looked back at this girl who'd stumbled into his life selling dying flowers and somehow become the reason he believed in second chances. I won't, he promised. I have too much to live for now. The war lasted 3 days. Dante Moretti moved through the city like divine retribution, swift, merciless, unstoppable. The Salvatore family had made a fatal miscalculation. They'd thought his recent behavior signaled weakness. Instead, they'd awakened something far more dangerous than the cold, calculating boss they knew. They'd awakened a man with something to protect. The Salvatore underboss was found in his car, a single bullet between his eyes and a message pinned to his chest. Touch what's mine, and hell comes for you. The message was clear. The response was immediate. By day 2, the Salvatore family was suing for peace. By day 3, their Don was dead, not by Dante's hand directly, but by his own lieutenants who decided cutting off the head was preferable to total annihilation. The new Salvatore leadership sent emissaries. Treaties were signed. Territories were redrawn. And most importantly, a declaration was made and circulated through every family, every organization, every criminal enterprise in New York. Lily Chen and May Chen are under the protection of Dante Moretti. They are untouchable. They are family. Any action against them is an act of war against the Moretti organization and all allied families. The message was received, understood, obeyed. On the 4th day, Dante returned to the safe house. He looked exhausted, like he'd aged years in days. But he was alive. And he was smiling. It's over, he told them simply. You're safe. Moving into Dante's building was surreal. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a tower in Manhattan, each level more luxurious than anything Lily or May had imagined. Their floor had 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This is too much, May protested, overwhelmed. We can't accept this. You can, and you will. Dante's voice left no room for argument. Besides, I'm 2 floors up. You'll have complete privacy. Think of me as a very protective landlord. Over the following weeks, they settled into a new rhythm. May continued her cancer treatment at the best facility in the city, driven there and back by security who treated her like royalty. Lily enrolled in a private school, Dante's insistence non-negotiable, where she thrived academically. And Dante, despite his protests about privacy, found himself spending more and more time on their floor. He'd appear for dinner, claiming he was just checking in. He'd help Lily with homework, his surprisingly patient explanations of algebra making her laugh. He'd sit with May during her bad days, when the treatment made her sick, holding her hand and telling her stories about Isabella, stories he'd never told anyone. Slowly, carefully, impossibly, they became a family. Not traditional, not conventional, but real. Lily watched Dante transform. The hard edges softened. The constant vigilance eased. He smiled more, real smiles that reached his eyes. He laughed at Lily's jokes. He brought May flowers every week, always fresh, never wilted. And late at night, when he thought no one was watching, Lily saw him touch the tattoos on his neck. Both dates now, Isabella's death and Lily's salvation, like a prayer. 6 months after the shooting, May's doctors declared her cancer in remission. Not cured, they were careful about that word, but in remission. Stable. Manageable. The celebration was small but perfect. Just the three of them in the penthouse, with Chinese takeout, May's favorite, and a cake Dante had somehow learned to bake, lopsided but delicious. "To second chances," Dante said, raising his glass of sparkling cider. "To guardian angels," May countered, her eyes shining. "To family," Lily added quietly. They clinked glasses, and in that moment everything that had been broken felt whole. Later, after May had gone to bed, Lily found Dante on the roof terrace, staring out at the city lights. "Can I ask you something?" she said, joining him at the railing. "Always. Are you happy?" The question clearly surprised him. He considered it carefully, like he was examining something fragile and unfamiliar. "Yes," he said finally. "I think I am. For the first time in 8 years, I'm actually happy." "Because of us?" "Because you reminded me that life isn't just about survival and revenge. It's about choosing who you want to be every single day." He looked down at her. "I spent 8 years being the man who couldn't save his sister. You gave me the chance to be the man who could save someone. That's a gift I can never repay." "You already did," Lily said simply. "You gave us everything." "No, you gave me everything. Purpose, hope, a reason to be better than I was." He paused. "Isabella would have liked you. You're both stubborn, brave, and too smart for your own good." Lily smiled. "I wish I could have met her." "Me too." Dante's voice was soft with old grief and new peace. "But in a way, she sent you to me. I believe that now. She sent an angel to save a devil who thought he was beyond redemption." "You were never beyond redemption," Lily said firmly. "You were just waiting for the right reason to change." Dante pulled her into a hug, the kind of hug he'd never given anyone except Isabella, protective and gentle and full of unspoken love. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair, "for seeing something in me worth saving." "Thank you for buying my flowers," Lily whispered back. They stood there on the roof, under the stars, two people from impossible worlds who'd found each other in the rain and built something beautiful from brokenness. Below them, the city pulsed with life, some of it dark, some of it light, all of it complicated. But up here, 40 stories above the chaos, there was only peace. And somewhere, Lily liked to think, Isabella Moretti was smiling. 5 years later, Lily stood in her high school graduation gown, diploma in hand, and scanned the crowd for the faces that mattered. She found them easily. Front row, center. May Chen, healthy and radiant, 8 years cancer-free and working as a nurse helping other families navigate the impossible medical system. And beside her, Dante Moretti, looking uncomfortable in formal wear but beaming with pride. He'd changed so much in 5 years. The organization still ran, still operated in shadows, but Dante had delegated more, stepped back from the worst of it. He'd invested in legitimate businesses. He'd donated millions to children's charities. He'd become the man Isabella had always believed he could be. And he'd become Lily's father in every way that mattered except biology. After the ceremony, he pulled her into a crushing hug. "Proud of you, kid. Couldn't have done it without you." "Sure you could have. You're the strongest person I know." He pulled back, and she saw tears in his eyes, something that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. "But I'm glad I got to be here for it." May joined them, wrapping them both in a group embrace. "My family," she said softly. "My beautiful, impossible family." Later, at the celebration dinner, Lily made a speech. She talked about second chances and guardian angels. She talked about how one moment, one transaction on a rainy street, had changed 3 lives forever. "5 years ago, I was selling flowers to survive," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion. "I was cold, hungry, and convinced the world had forgotten about me. Then a stranger stopped. And instead of walking past like everyone else, he saw me. Really saw me. And he chose compassion." She looked at Dante, who was staring at his plate, uncomfortable with the attention. "That choice saved my mother's life. It saved mine. But I hope, it also saved his. Because the man who bought my flowers was carrying so much pain, so much grief. And somehow, we helped heal each other." Dante looked up, and their eyes met across the table. "So here's to choices," Lily raised her glass. "To the moments that change everything. And to the guardian angels who walk among us, whether they believe in their own wings or not." The table erupted in applause. Dante stood, crossed to Lily, and whispered in her ear, "Isabella was right about me. Because you made it true." Lily hugged him tight. "We saved each other. That's how family works." That night, Dante stood alone on the roof terrace, 24 fresh roses in his arms. He did this every year on November 15th, brought flowers to remember Isabella. But now, he also brought them on the anniversary of meeting Lily. A reminder that death isn't the end of love, and that sometimes, when you least expect it, life gives you a second chance at being someone's hero. He set the roses down and touched the tattoos on his neck. 2 dates. 2 lives. 1 impossible journey from darkness into light. "I kept my promise, Bella," he said to the stars. "I became the guardian angel you always believed I was. It just took me 8 years and 1 brave little girl to figure out how." The wind carried his words away, and somewhere in the universe, Dante liked to believe his sister heard them. And she smiled.